right, welcome back, everyone. Up next, I am excited to welcome a panel discussion between design educators and authors who will address the various challenges and opportunities that exist for Black writers. Welcome to the panel. Dr. Sales, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. We're so excited to be here today. We're actually going to jump right into introductions. I'm going to share my screen, and then I'll ask that each panelist say a quick hello and a little bit about your recent or upcoming book projects. After that, we will get into the discussion. Let's see if I can get this thing to work. All right, let's go full screen. Perfect. Can you guys see that okay? I can't see anyone else, so I have no idea if anyone's responding. Let's see. Okay, perfect. Yes, thank you. All right, so let's go in the order that we have here on the screen. So we'll start with Kevin, even though we just heard an amazing lightning talk with you. If you could do a quick introduction for those that may have missed your talk.
Sure, so Kevin Bethune, founder, chief creative of Dreams in Life. First book coming out March 15th, Reimagining Design, Unlocking Strategic Innovation. This fits within the Simplicity series at MIT Press, started by Dr. John Maida with his Laws of Simplicity. Reimagining Design is a personal story of multidisciplinary leaps and the perspective of how you can unlock strategic innovation and how we position design at parity with other disciplines. I think it offers a lot for individuals as they think about their journey, as well as how we as leaders can think about influencing organizations for the better with design. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move on to Rick.
Hi, my name is Rick Griffith. I'm an intersectional artist and graphic designer, and I run a Black graphic design bookstore and activist bookstore called Shop It Matter. And I generally think of publishing as another practice of mine, another part of my practice, which is I own 5 printing presses. And so what I want to distribute, I print and publish and send it out, or assemble it for any number of purposes. But I'm very much into the idea of publishing as part of practice and certainly as part of exhibition making. And so nice to be here. Thanks for asking me to join in.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And we will go on to Tasheka.
Hi, I'm Tasheka Arceceaux-Sutton. I'm an associate professor of graphic design at NC State. My essay, Louise E. Jefferson, a Renaissance Woman, was just published this past fall in Baseline Shift. And I have another book coming out in fall of 2023 called Black America and Graphic Design, which is about the history of African America and the African diaspora in graphic design, 19th to the 21st century. I also have an essay coming out this spring sometime or later this spring for the book that's called Documented Nameplates, which is about the historical context of nameplates.
Thank you so much. Let's go on to Dr. Lesley-Ann Noel.
Hi, yeah, my name is Lesley-Ann Noel. I am one of the editors of the book called The Black Experience in Design, which just came out on the 1st of February, and it's sold out. I'm a professor at NC State University. I just moved back here, so Tasheka and I are in the same neighborhood. And Tasheka and I just came from the same neighborhood. I was in New Orleans for 2 years as well. And what else can I say? I was working on actually 2 other book projects when I shifted focus to this book. I have it next to me, which I think of as a huge kind of participatory design project. And I hope to get back to the other book projects pretty soon. Here you can see it's a book. You could say that there are 70 people involved in producing this book. And, I was chatting with someone today and I said, well, that's why the book would sell out in a month. You have to, if you do a book with a collaboration with 70 people, it's all 70 people that are driving the success of the book. And it's a huge task. And I recommend that other people try to do this kind of thing as well. And Rick is one of our contributors. I was so happy to meet him during the process. So.
Thank you. And actually, let's see. And I am last here. I'm an associate professor of graphic design at Tennessee State University and also the chair of the Department of Art and Design this year. And TSU, Tennessee State, is an HBCU in Nashville. Shout out to all the HBCUs out there. My recent project, I was co-author on the book Extra Bold, a feminist, inclusive, anti-racist, non-binary field guide for graphic designers, alongside a wonderful group of co-authors and so many amazing contributors. Here are a couple of the spreads from the book, but similar to the last project that was shown, it's really, the success is really in all of the collaborators and all the people that have contributed to this piece. I'm also working on a project with Princeton Architectural Press that's scheduled to be released next fall, tentatively titled Beyond the Bauhaus. That's really about expanding narratives and moving past the traditional design canon. So that's a little bit about us. I'm going to stop my share and I'd like to just jump into some questions. As we're having this conversation, if you guys think of anything you'd like to ask, please put it in the chat and we will try our best to answer. So this goes to anyone on the panel that wants to start us off. Why? Let's start off with sort of the big question of why is it important for Black designers to get into this space of writing and publishing?
Because no one's going to do it for us. And it's, one of the side projects that I'm working on right now is the AIGA's first cohort of Wikipedia editors. And one of the things that we're discovering, as I'm sure that Tasheka discovered, and I'm sure that as many researchers are discovering, is that we have to uncover really obscure histories. And it's just what we have to do right now, but our reality in the future shouldn't be the same. I know that it's fun to go digging, but it shouldn't be the only means by which we find the history of our participation in this practice. I think that every book that comes out right now that's focusing on in their area, like Kevin's book, it's part of an amazing collection of books and it's bound to stand out. I think it's a very necessary document and we shouldn't have to go hunting for the opinions of people who have great experiences in this country, and we shouldn't go hunting for the experiences of people who are relevant in the profession.
I totally agree, and thank you, Rick. It's considering the cultural influence that the Black community has in this world to look to our design and innovation fields and the degree of codification only sort of authored by a select few. Our voice is needed more than ever, and if anything, we need to supercharge the injection of our voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, we all need to be communicating more. I started off saying in my mind, I was saying writing more, and maybe it's not only writing, but we have to be documenting our own stories and narratives and our own takes of what's going on. And so, even in my professor role, I'm encouraging people to write. I'm like, if you haven't written an essay by the end of the semester, a really big essay that we could try to send somewhere by the end of the semester, maybe you haven't, that's what I need from you, because who else is going to write this stuff, like Rick said? So it's like, we have to be telling our own stories. And that's why everyone should be in publishing or, putting their ideas out there.
I'd also, I just want to say one more thing about that too, is my experience has been a lot of different things as a writer, because I'm also writing for print magazine, and that sometimes it feels really transactional and fairly toxic. So the other thing that we should be doing is supporting each other as publishers and as editors, and holding space for an experience and for a process that I think was incredibly valuable in meeting you, Lesley-Ann, and while we were doing the brick, which we affectionately call the brick, while we're working on the brick, it was so important to be in community. And sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Tasheka, go ahead.
No, so I agree with everything that everyone said. For me, I actually think about the students who are coming up, the young designers. And so when I'm writing, that's who I'm thinking about, because I remember when I was just starting out and that was nothing, I didn't have access, not that I didn't have access, but there just wasn't any resources out there to support the kind of research that I was doing when I was in grad school, which was discovering Black people who have made contributions to design history, who have been omitted from the canon. And so I know how hard and difficult that work was in the early 2000s when I first started this journey. And so that's why I think it's important, right, to get more young people interested in this field.
Kaleena, I'll share a little bit of this backstory that Rick just referred to. So in working on the brick, right, I guess my philosophy is about participation. That's the area of design that I'm very involved in, participatory design. And, I wanted to make sure in my role as editor, I wanted to make sure that people felt that they could contribute even if they were self-conscious about their writing, right? And I write a lot and I'm not even trying to be a good writer. I'm just trying to get ideas onto paper. And I send, I don't know if I could say bleepy first drafts. I send terrible first drafts everywhere. And a lot of them are accepted. A lot of us are dealing with this kind of our own ideas that what we write isn't good enough. And so what happened when we were working on the brick is that we created writing meetings where people came. I met you at one. Yeah, you came as well, right? So, people came and sat down and just wrote for an hour. And then we could take that and do something with it, because we hear too many messages about how we can't share things before they're perfect. And that we didn't really want that to be part of this process. We knew that people had stories to tell and we wanted to make sure that people could tell them.
Yeah, thank you for that. And actually, that's one thing that's really, I think, really special about the book that you guys just put out. You allowed all the contributors to have their own voice and to share that whichever way that made sense for them. And it made for a really unique project, because we don't see that happen, in other spaces. And so I'll go ahead and actually go to the next question. Obviously the design industry struggles with, has a diversity issue, and so does the publishing industry. And so can we speak to the positionality of being Black writers and sharing Black stories in a largely white design or publishing space? What are some considerations, for example, that you made while writing, or did you make any considerations based on the audience that you were writing for?
I can start.
Sure.
It's thanks to sort of the publishing team and everything. I had some runway, and it was sort of a rolling discovery of being allowed to sort of go there in my personal story, bring forward that narrative as a Black man navigating corporate America, right? But at the same time, I had to sort of check and say, well, in terms of how the media push for the book is going to sort of commence, don't necessarily pigeonhole or label the book as, oh, it's a Black design book only. I want to speak to everyone around certain regards, especially coming from my experiences. Of course, I'm proud of it. But that sort of thing around entering the media space as a new voice and cracking through, that's sort of the thing I was aware of, I guess.
And I'm really curious though, what happens when you are sharing specifically Black stories? Uh-oh, we're getting a little extra background noise. What happens when you are sharing specifically Black stories? I have a little, I'll say for myself, as you guys are thinking, You know, I write a lot about teaching at an HBCU, and I talk about my experience attending an HBCU, and basically some cultural differences that might show up in design portfolios and that sort of thing. But I'm always conscious of the fact that I'm writing for my students who are largely Black, but I'm also writing for another audience. I'm writing for people who don't have that experience either. And so, you know, it's always that, you know, that double consciousness that, you know, W.B. Du Bois talks about. And so I'm curious if you guys have encountered that as well, or, you know, have you struggled in any way with that?
Well, I'm writing for print, and that is if we assume that the audience makeup of print magazine is sort of essentially the same as the makeup of the profession, then who I'm writing for is much more likely to be a fan of Aaron Draplin than Rick Griffith. And the things that I've been writing for my column there have been like, I wanted to take a very specific opportunity to say, you know, things like empathy is garbage, you know, like UX UI designers that come to their work believing that there is a sufficient dose of empathy in their work, it's a bunch of garbage. And that like ultimately everyone needs to challenge whether or not they've got the wherewithal, the training, the experience to actually have anything that looks anything like empathy in an MVP in the tech industry. And that certainly what needs to happen is that like you need to look at yourselves and the impact of your work, and that MVPs do plenty of harm to people, and they do plenty of harm to people in the margins and people who are poor. And so ultimately the things that I'll write about will include these types of challenges to the audience that print has given me, because I think that a great number of that audience have not got the same experience as myself, and also they don't have the level of consideration particularly high in their list of things to do, like to challenge the systems that they're working inside of. And being on the sort of outside or even the receiving side of that as a user of digital products, I have plenty to say about that, you know. But it's so interesting to think of the duality where it's like, if I'm speaking in this platform, there are things that I know this audience needs to hear from me because I think of it as my responsibility. Whereas if we're having a chat, all that just sounds like a Rick likes to hear himself talk, because we all actually know this to be true, you know, and we've got other things to talk about, which is how do we participate in that marketplace to get our influence and to get our ideas present in that place. That's the thing that we get to talk about as a group together. And so the audience of this conference could be in both places, right? They could be managers of people who make digital products, who need to infuse more diverse experiences and people, of course, into their work groups in order to achieve something different. Or they could be, you know, sort of needing to challenge the systems that they work inside and be much more aware of the participation of their work in some system that will harm people, you know. And it's altogether too common in graphic design right now to have that happen.
I think, so, you know, up until maybe about 2015, this is when I was still a professor in Trinidad. And I think up until then, I was trying to see how to fit into this design world that I didn't think I was really part of. And I was doing a different kind of design work because there I was on this small island and trying to seem like I could be a designer in New York or whatever. And I guess now I'm gonna say a funny thing. Now I don't care, right? I think I just have to be me, right? And I'm not, and I think that that's actually how I became successful, because I'm not trying to change the message for a white audience and a Black audience, or I am going to show up as the Blackest Caribbeanist, person in the room, because I think that you need me to be this person, right? Now, okay, I've said that, and in my other, on the other book project that I'm working on, so I'm already in the second edits, and my first draft was very Black, very Caribbean. I had stories about my grandparents in Point Fortin in Trinidad, and the editor now is kind of working with me and saying, okay, you need to give a little bit more information here, or, but I think that we just have to show up who we are, right? Black, Latino, queer, disabled, we just have to show up as who we are and let people interact with that person, right? Rather than, all of the code switching that we normally have to do.
Thank you. And I saw someone in the chat, it says showing up as your full self is liberating. I think that is that is definitely true. Yeah. So, okay, let's talk about, since we don't have a ton of time, I want to give people some practical tips on maybe, just breaking into the industry, the publishing space, and what your experiences have been like. A lot of people have ideas and don't really know how to, connect with a publisher, how to get past, just the how-tos of it all. So anyone want to throw out any tips?
I think maybe I'll speak. I definitely didn't see a book being in my career cards in my journey, but I did learn through my career the importance of eminence, of connecting your work realities to communities outside of your immediate sort of work focus. Like connecting with others is always good. And then sharing what you've learned, sharing what you did, even if it's not done or fully baked, like give a talk, write an article, blog, but share something. And then usually the universe conspires and you get something in return, you give and get through that principle. And sure enough, over time, you could have bodies of work that could be put in front of publishers to be considered for books or whatever.
I say if you have a network and someone that you work with or friends that have experience publishing, talk to them, ask them to share their book proposals with you. Align yourselves with people who are doing things that you want to do. One thing that helped me was I did a design incubation writing fellowship, and that was really great and very informative. And that really helped me a lot with having confidence with my writing. Back to what Lesley said about bringing your full self. I don't know how to be anybody but Tasheka Arceceaux-Sutton. So putting on this other voice, that actually makes me more nervous than being who I am. And so the other thing I would say, if you're, depending on where you are with writing, a lot of collaborative projects are happening, and I think those are great. And for me personally, if it hadn't been for my co-authors, I've been trying to get this book together for a really long time. And once I started sharing my research and my ideas with other people is what actually helped start the ball rolling.
Yeah, anyone else want to jump in on the benefits or even the challenges of collaboration?
I'm the only one that hasn't actually made a book here. And damn, no, it's really actually like I'm constantly compiling my things into books now, because I either see one around the corner, or I will self-publish, or I will, look for an editor to smash something up for me and to help me get a good perspective. But I think the most important thing, as like I share this with the audience, right? Like that most of the audience would not have made a book yet. So I share that with them. And my most important thing right now is to be prepared. If I actually have a book inside me, which has been said a few times to me, like, hey, Rick, you got a book in you? I'm like, you're not serious. But if I have a book inside me, then I should probably start getting it out of me. And then if it's several books, I should start planning to be several books in. But to be caught unprepared in this moment would be just a shame. I think so many important opinions are waiting to be captured, and so many important voices are waiting to be captured, that like, not that I don't need to see like 2 books or 3 books from Kevin, but I also need to see 2 or 3 more books from everybody. And there needs, like, as soon as one of us gets as many books as Sean Adams or Michael Beirut, you know, as soon as we get that status, as soon as we get that opportunity repeated over and over and over again, a multi-book deal, and, you know, opportunities to collaborate with other people's investments, right? Then I think, you know, we've still got plenty to be prepared to do. And so just get ready. I think that this time isn't fleeting. It's just a moment that we want to leverage as long as possible and make great products for the audience of designers that are to come, who will want to know about hip hop history, and who will want to know about all of even the present tense opinions of Black people who have survived so much to be in the profession in the first place, and then eventually have a chance to say, well, I have a naturally diverse opinion on this, and I'm about to share this, you know, for the first time, and I've been, you know, practicing for 20, 30 years. You know, I think it's exciting. Be ready, get ready. Who knows when it's going to happen is my piece of advice, and I'm ready with you.
I love
I want
that.
to share something about collaboration, maybe. I was going down another track, but you know, well, I guess 2 things. One thing is that the book happens a little bit at a time, you know, so people get afraid of, you know, how am I going to put 60,000 words down on a piece of, you know, on paper? But it just takes a little bit, you know, you can do it in small increments. And that's something to keep in mind. Like if you did 30 minutes a day for an entire year, your book is done, right? Or even shorter than that. But then the other thing is about collaboration, and, you know, just find the people who kind of feed your soul and see how you can work with them. So I'm in one writing group. This is actually from the design incubation and another design incubation fellowship, where 5 of us meet every Sunday morning for 2 hours. And we've been doing this for 2 years, and we've written essays. We actually wrote a book over the summer. We don't have a publisher for that one. You know, and it's like, find your collaborators and just do things with them, and let the ideas grow. And then you can find other ways to get them out to other audiences.
Yeah, I want to, I'll say too, just to piggyback, one of the best pieces of advice I'd ever been given was to just write, even if you don't know where it's going, even if you have no idea what you're going to use it for, just sort of get it out. And so, yeah, I just wanted to echo what Rick and Leslie said. And then if we can read maybe 1 or 2 questions from the chat before we end our session. So Jessica writes, what recommendations do you have about marketing your books? It's one thing to write and a whole other thing to really get into the world with so many being released every day. And Rick, you own a bookstore. I don't know if you want to jump in on that one.
Might be a combination of things. It's one thing to write, but the way that Lesley-Ann speaks to a little bit at a time, maybe also it's a smaller project. Maybe it's a zine. And, you know, the zine market is full of largely white authors as well. So it's not like we only have to penetrate one part of the publishing world. Largely, you know, white people are doing letterpress work. Largely, white people are making zines. Largely, white people own all sorts of media. Whatever it is that you're deciding to make, go ahead and make a small piece of it too, and market yourself inside of the place where this kind of subject matter is people are excited about it. So if it's a podcast, find yourself a collaborator, and for every collaborator in it, you have another audience. So find yourself a sponsor or someone who wants to be associated with it. Again, another audience. If you want to go independent, which, you know, I'm a huge fan of, if you want to go independent, I think that doing a small project and risking just a little bit, putting it out there. Quimby's is a zine store in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and also there's a Quimby's in Chicago. They have a huge library of zines. Other cities have zine libraries. And if you do make a book, if you do actually make a book, publishers know how to market your book, as long as you know how to tell your story. And thinking about your story again in sort of long and short forms so that you can express yourself fairly quickly is important, so that the publishers can take something that's true and push it out into the world. But maybe it's also start small, and then maybe it's also, you know, think about it in smaller chunks, for sure.
Thank you. And we'll make this one the last question from Daniels. It says, the question is to Lesley-Ann, what inspires you to complete your writings? It's easy to find inspiration to start, but how do you stay committed through the writing process? Great question.
I use external deadlines because I do have a lot of drafts that are not finished. You know, if you go onto my Medium, when I go into Medium, because I do use Medium sometimes to work on drafts, you know, I have a lot of them that I just never press publish. But I also, I mean, so I'm an academic, so I use journal deadlines, I use all of these other deadlines to actually get me to finish things. And I don't wait for the thing to be perfect before I send it. I just know, okay, the deadline is the 1st of March, I have to send it. So sometimes you have to do that for yourself, where you create these made up deadlines, and that's the thing that's going to keep you on track.
All right, there's so much more to talk about, but we'll have to end it there. I think our contact information is available somewhere, so everyone feel free to reach out to follow up on any other questions. Thank you so much for joining us.
Fantastic. Thank you all.